We have to trust in his plan. Friends, well, it seemed impossible for this promise to be fulfilled as prophesied by Micah. God was planning something behind the scene. God was planning something like he is doing for your life. Behind the scene, God is planning something. And the problem is that God does not tell us what he is doing. God does not explain. We've got to trust in his plan, even when we don't see any sign. Let me show you how this plan worked. This great king, friends, had to be born, listen to this, in Bethlehem. Bethlehem, oh you little city, you have not been forgotten. This king, and that is Jesus, that's why we are here celebrating his birth, had to be born nowhere else. He had to be born in Bethlehem to fulfill the prophecy that was given by Micah 700 years before. But here's the problem. Here's the problem. His parents, Joseph and Mary, were not residing in Bethlehem. They were from Nazareth. This place, sometimes we confuse the two. They were from Nazareth. And so I did my homework. I wanted to see the distance between Nazareth and Bethlehem. And I went to my maps. And I realized it was around 158 kilometers between the two. But remember, the promise had to be fulfilled in Bethlehem, not Nazareth. Nazareth is where Jesus grew up, but he was born in Bethlehem. And Bethlehem was the village, the city to produce the king. So this would happen. For the fulfillment of this prophecy, God had a plan. And the Roman government ordered for census. And everybody had to go to where they were born. And so Joseph had to leave Nazareth with his heavily pregnant wife. They didn't have a car. They had to go for 158 kilometers. And it just happened like the date was due when the census was happening. Now you will tell me it's coincidence. It is not coincidence. There are no coincidences with God. God moved the emperor to call for census so that the prophecy will be fulfilled at the right time, at the right place. God had a plan. And I want to tell you, God has a plan for you. God has not forgotten you. There is no coincidence. We may think ilifanyika tu. No, God had a plan that these people had to move from Nazareth, walk all the way. I don't know what they used, maybe donkeys. Look at that distance. It's like from here to Nakuru. Can you imagine? With a heavy pregnant woman and the struggles, and then they didn't find a place to rest. This was in the plan, so that the fulfillment of the prophecy may take place at the exact place, Bethlehem. And therefore, the prophecy was fulfilled. Oh, Bethlehem, you have not been forgotten. Out of you, a great king shall arise. And I stand here to tell you, child of God, God has not forgotten you. There are plans behind the scene. God is connecting things behind the scene. Just wait patiently. When time comes, He will fulfill everything. You have not been forgotten. Praise the name of the Lord. You see, you may feel like God has forgotten you. But God has a plan. I know you don't have a neighbor, but tell them, God has a plan. Even the imaginary neighbor you have. God has a plan. He is working it behind the scene, and that's where we give up because we don't see what he is doing. Lakini hata saa hii, my brother, ukiangalia maisha yako vizuri, utaona Mungu alikuwa na mpango. Wajua especially Nairobi tuko na haraka sana. If you sit down, uangalie miaka 10 vile Mungu amekupeleka, ukaenda hapa kukaharibika, ukakasirika, ukamisi kanisa la wiki 2, ukakuja, ukajaribu hii ikakosa kusucceed, and then you look at where you are, you will see God had a plan. Mungu alikuwa na mpango. God had a plan. And sometimes it's so important to sit down and look back at what God has been doing, and you realize all through, even when I felt like I'm forgotten, even when I felt like God never answered prayer, kumbe Mungu alikuwa na mpango. There are things he was doing behind the scene. See what God does. Behind the scene, God moves. I was reading, this is the first census that was ordered. We may think it's the king who ordered that. And he said, usihesabiwe. When they are doing census here in the city, they don't tell us to go back to where we were born. But in that time, the king commanded, lazima kila mtu aende mahali alizaliwa, ili Joseph achukue mke wake Mary, waende. Na walipofika Bethlehem, siku ya kuzaliwa mtoto ikafika, na Bethlehem ikajua ya kwamba haijasahaulika. Na nataka kukuambia mpendwa, Mungu hajakusahau. There is a plan. You've got to trust in his plan, although you don't see it. Praise the name of the Lord. As I conclude, friends,